But I want to go to this next point. Number 3, how do we continue the mission of Jesus? You know, when I said, Lord, you got to have a strategy in your word, I found the answer in his instructions to his disciples. And in Luke chapter 10, he says this, when you enter a house, first say, peace to this house. And if a man of peace is there, your peace will rest on him. If not, it will return to you. I didn't make this up. This is the peace plan. I just named it after the guy he said you find first. He's open and he's influential. He's not necessarily a believer. He's just receptive. He's willing to work with you. So I put these 5 things that Jesus did in an acrostic using the word peace. Now, what is the peace plan? Here's the definition. Peace plan is ordinary people empowered by God, making a difference together wherever they are. That is the peace plan. Ordinary people empowered by God, making a difference together wherever they are. Now, note each phrase. Ordinary people. Peace plan is not a plan for super saints or super talented. It's a plan for normal people like you and me who can make a difference. We've sent out 26,000 normal people. Just normal people, all ages and stages. Ordinary people. It's planned for normal people, empowered by God. Anytime God tells you to do something, he's going to give you the power to do it. He always gives you the power. Making a difference together. Notice, not on your own. It's not by yourself. We're better together. Making a difference together. Peace is small group based. We don't let anybody go on mission by themselves. Why? Because Jesus didn't. Every time Jesus sent people out, they were always in teams. A minimum of 2. And you see, when Paul goes on mission, he's got a traveling seminary with him. He even names them. He says, today I got with me Aristarchus and Secundus and Epaphroditus and Timothy. And he had a team with him wherever he went. The idea of the Lone Ranger missionary going about by himself is just not in Scripture. Jesus said we go in teams. We're better together. So ordinary people empowered by God making a difference together. All of those 26,000 people we sent out, we sent them out in small groups, which is why you need to form groups so you have people to send out wherever they are. Now, note each phrase, wherever they are. There are 3 parts to the peace plan, and I put it there on your outline. There's personal peace, and there's local peace, and there is global peace. Now, what do I mean by that? A personal peace is your personal ministry to the people in your life. That's your personal life mission, to your family who don't know Christ, to your friends, to the people you work with, your coworkers, employers, employees, things like that. That's your personal peace plan. Local peace plan is your small groups ministry to others in your area. Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, that's local peace. Global peace is to the ends of the earth. That's your church's ministry to the entire world. Now, I want you to notice that it's not about location. It's about dedication. You don't fulfill your mission by crossing the sea. You fulfill your mission by seeing the cross. It's all about the cross. Now, these 5 elements of the peace plan are how we do what we do. For many years now, we have been doing testing. And our goal, when we started the peace plan in 2003, we said, you know what, we'll use our own church as guinea pigs. Can ordinary people go overseas and plant churches, equip leaders, assist the poor, care for the sick, educate the next generation? Can that actually be done? Well, I don't know. We're going to find out. Now, our ultimate goal has always been to go to those 3,000 tribes with no Bible, no believer, and no body of Christ. But that's like going to the moon. And before you go to the moon, you got to do a bunch of other things before you go to the moon. So we actually adopted the NASA model of going to the moon. In 1963, John F. Kennedy stood up at Rice University in Houston and said, we're going to the moon by the end of the decade. When he said that, it was physically impossible. The technology had not been invented. We didn't even know how to do it. Never confuse the decision-making phase with the problem-solving phase. You might write that down. Never confuse the decision-making phase with the problem-solving phase. If you solve all the problems before you make the decision to do the right thing, you'll never get it done. You make the decision and then you solve the problem. Don't confuse problem-solving and decision-making. Every parent makes a decision to have a kid and they have no idea how to do it. Nobody knows how to be a parent before they're a parent. You make the decision and then you solve the problems the rest of your life. And so don't confuse the two. They said, we're going to the moon because it's the right thing to do. And we said, we're going to help churches, your church, our church, and other churches, go to that last final frontier. We don't know how to do it, but we'll make the decision. And so when Kennedy said we're going to the moon by the end of the decade, NASA came up with a 3-phase plan. And the first phase was what was called the Mercury phase. Some of you will remember this. The Mercury phase was 7 flights, and can we put a man in space and bring him back safely? That was the whole goal of the Mercury phase of NASA. Can we just put a guy in space and bring him back? When they went up in space, those guys didn't actually do anything. It was just, can they stay alive? And they came back down. In fact, sometimes we sent monkeys and dogs and stuff like that, just checking out who could live in space. And that was the Mercury phase. And we, fortunately, Russia sent some in space and left a few there, but we got ours back. And it was just, can you live in space? The answer was yes. Well, the Mercury phase of the peace plan was 2003 to 2007. And during that time, it was, can we send normal members of a local church overseas and get them back safely to the most bizarre places to do the peace plan? And a lot of them, we didn't get a whole lot done, but we didn't lose anybody. They all came back. So we successfully completed the Mercury phase. And we said, yes, you can take normal people and send them overseas to all kinds of places to plant churches, equip leaders, assist the poor, care for the sick, educate the next generation. We had about 4,000 people. They were the guinea pigs. They're the heroes in my book. And sometimes they came back and said, we don't know where we went, we don't know what we did, and we don't know if we made any impact coming back. Yeah, but you made it. You're safe. Congratulations. And as I've told you in another session, we've done thousands of ways that don't work. We have tried thousands of ways to reach people around the world. And I know all the ways that don't work, but we found about a dozen that really worked well. And those only because we were willing to fail at a lot of other things. So Mercury was like 2003 to 2007. In Peace 2.0, NASA was what was called the Gemini phase. And in the Gemini phase of going to the moon, they sent all these rockets up. Anybody remember John Glenn? John Glenn was a Gemini astronaut. And The Right Stuff was a movie made about the Gemini thing. And the whole goal of that thing was, can we put a man in space and practice all the stuff we got to do going to the moon? And can he stay in space the amount of time that would be going to the moon? So some of those guys are going around the Earth 40, 50 times. The same to see, can they stay in space that long? And they're practicing like space docking and space walking and all the stuff you're going to have to do to go to the moon. Our Gemini phase was 2002 to 2011. And that's when we sent the 26,000 people to 197 countries, trying them all that. And then we went to Peace 3.0, and that means we're going to the moon. And the going to the moon of NASA was called the Apollo Project, and now they had to go to the moon. And our going to the moon is helping us and you and anybody else who will join us get to those 3,000 tribes that have no Bible, no believer, and no body of Christ. And that's the phase we're in now. Now, how can we continue the ministry of Jesus? Well, let's just go over that acrostic again. And here's how we do it. Number one, by planting and partnering with churches. By planting and partnering with churches. God has not promised to bless our plans, but he has promised, I will build my church. Peace Plan is 100% local church based. It's by the church, of the church, for the church, to the church, through the church. It gives the glory to the church. It's about the church. This is totally different than most mission programs. A lot of mission programs today, they go overseas, and you say, well, are you supporting the church? And they say, oh, yes, we work with the church. Now, let me explain what that phrase means. We work with the church. It means we use churches overseas to do our projects. We're not serving the church, they are serving us. We have something we want to do in that country, and we go to that church, and we partner with them, but we're using the church, their time, their resources, their money, their staff, to help do what we want to do, rather than going to the church and saying, what would you like done, and how could we serve you? That's what we do when we go in peace. We make the local church the hero. Not us, not an organization. We make that local church the hero. I have discovered that the more I honor the local church, the more God anoints my life, because he loves the bride of Christ. I tell young guys when they're getting married, you're going to have a wedding. I said, okay, buddy, you'll have a great wedding if you understand this. In every wedding, the star of the show is the bride. Okay, everybody know that. The star of the show in every wedding is the bride. The co-star is the mother of the bride. Everybody else is supporting cast. If you understand that, you'll have a fun wedding. It's not about you. And so in the wedding, the glory goes to the bride appropriately. And we say that in missions, the glory should go to the bride, the local church. Not to an NGO, not to a parachurch organization, not to my church or your church or any other sending or serving church, but it should go to that local church. Make that local pastor the hero. I'll give you an example. My friend Franklin Graham has a thing called shoe boxes. You all know about the Christmas shoe boxes. And you fill them up with activities and things and goodies and toys and stuff like that. And then at Christmas time, they give them out to needy kids around the world. We used to do shoe boxes. In fact, one year across the stage here, there were 25,000 shoe boxes filled with stuff for poor kids around the world. And my people used to take them overseas. And we would go and we'd take them to orphanages and places like that. And we'd walk in and we'd give them the orphan their Christmas gift. And the orphan would look up, oh, thank you, great American. Thank you for this. Our church never does anything for us like this. But thank you so much. And we feel real good because we feel like the hero. And a year later, we want to go back again because we've actually felt noble. I'm noble. I'm helping the poor person here. But you're actually harming the local church. And you're robbing the glory from the bride. Because they're there 365 days a year, and you're there one day a year, and you're getting all the credit. And it makes these guys not look good. So we made a rule. You can still fill shoe boxes, fine. We do peace shoe boxes now. You fill shoe boxes, but nobody is allowed to give them out. You're not going to make yourself the hero. We're going to take them to New Life Church of Kiev and let Pastor Anatoly give them out. And then who gets to be the hero? The pastor and that church. Do you see the difference, how radically different this is? A lot of organizations say, we work with the church, but it means we're using them for our program rather than when we go into peace, we go into a village, we say, hey, church, what do you need and how can we help? We don't ever set the agenda. We let them tell us what they need, and then we serve the church as that church serves the community. And we would just as soon go in and out and not even be known we're there. There's no big banner going up, Saddleback has come to save the day. The difference between peace and almost every other mission project is who gets the credit. This is for the local church. Not by it or just through it, but it's of the church, and they get the credit. And so we plant and partner with churches, and the more I honor local churches, the more God blesses it. By the way, how long does it take to plant a church? One day. One day, yeah. You know, a small group is a church where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name. There am I in the midst of them. Paul would often spend as little as 2 weeks in an area and appoint elders and leave. That's a whole lot different than we think. Today, some denominations, you can't appoint an elder unless you've gone to seminary. Paul would go and be there 2 weeks. You're pretty good. You're an elder. You're an elder. See you guys later. What's this follow-up program? I'll write you a letter. I'm sure glad he wrote those letters. So he was doing it a whole lot faster than we're doing it. The E stands for equipping servant leaders. That's the second thing we do. You know what I'm doing here with you? I remember the first day I asked you to raise your hand and said, I'm commissioning you to teach this. And I gave you 2 Timothy 2:2. The things you've heard of me among many witnesses, commit to other faithful men who shall be able to teach others also. I want to ask you to consider being an international trainer. And what I teach you, you teach others, and they'll teach others, and they'll teach others. And you can equip servant leaders. To keep growing, you have to keep passing it on. What kind of leadership model does the world need? Not a Western one. It needs a perfect one. And there's only a perfect one, Jesus. So we plant churches and partner with other churches. We equip servant leaders. The third thing we're doing in Peace is we're assisting the poor. But assisting the poor is a whole lot different than the way we used to think so. We think assisting the poor means giving people money. No, what they need is not a handout. They need a hand up. Did you know that $50 can change a person's life in most countries? Because for $50, you can go buy a couple hens and a rooster, and you got an egg factory. And now you're selling eggs. You're not just caring for your family, but you're starting eggs. And $50 can go buy a goat, and now you got a dairy. And you're milking that goat every day, and you can sell the milk. You've heard people say, don't give a man a fish, teach him to fish. Everybody's heard that one. And we say, that's good. But the Peace Plan says that's not good enough. It's not enough just to give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. It's not enough just to teach him to fish. You got to teach him how to sell a fish and create a business out of it so he's self-sustaining. All over the world, I could take you to villages where people have been taught to fish. And they all go to the lake, and they catch the same fish, and they sit on the same road, and they all have the same fish for sale, and 3 of them sell, and everybody else's fish rots, and they go home because they're all doing the exact same thing. The way you get a village out of poverty is by creating multiple angles and a diverse economy. And somebody says, okay, I'll catch the fish. And they'll say, I'll clean the fish. It says, I'll can the fish. I said, I'll make the fishing nets. I'll build the boats. I'll insure the boats. I'll repair the nets. I'll skin the fish. I'll salt the fish. And then you've got a diverse economy where people are doing different things. Does this make sense? It's not just teaching them how to fish. You got to teach them how to sell a fish. You got to teach them more than that. You got to teach how to create jobs. And so we don't just give them a fish, we teach them. One study has shown that about 600 million poor people could create self-sustaining jobs in the world if they had access to a loan of like $50. So you loan them $50 and they pay it back $2 a month for 24 months. And that'll change their life. Don't take a purse. Don't just give things. Give people an opportunity. They need trade, not aid. Okay, the C when you go on a peace trip is caring for the sick. I told you 30,000 people die every day around the world, most of them from preventable diseases like unclean water. We're caring for the sick. And then the E is educating the next generation. We can teach you how to help local churches start a preschool, which is a big deal in poor countries. Because A, kids don't have any education. B, parents can't afford it. But C, if a church offers it, they can have it a lot lower. It gives the church a little bit of income. It makes them the hero, and it helps educate the next generation. There are little simple programs that we can do. Very, very simple. In caring for the sick, let me just give you one example. When President Bush was in his last year of office, he had a global summit on malaria, and he asked me to be the closing speaker. And I said, okay, I'll come if I can bring pastors from Africa, because I only want to raise up pastors. And I said, I want to show you guys. There was only about 400 people at this conference, but it was a who's who. It's Rupert Murdoch and Melinda Gates and a bunch of other people, and they're kind of movers and shakers. And I said, the church has 10 things that the government and business will never have. And you can't solve any world problem without the church. I said, for instance, right now, if we had the cure for AIDS, we could have the cure. You could invent the medicine today, and we couldn't get it to all the people because the distribution channels aren't there. But there is a distribution channel already on the ground. It's called the church. And I told these guys, I could take you to 10 million villages around the world. The only thing in it is a church. I've been there. The number one thing in a village is always a church. It's the first thing. The second thing is a bar. They may not have a grocery store, a fire department, a post office, but they got a church and a bar. They want purpose and pleasure. And I said, so we are in more distribution centers than all the Walmarts and the Starbucks and the McDonald's and every other franchise together are minuscule combined compared to the church. The church was the only global organization in the world for hundreds of years. We've been globalized for 200 years longer than anybody else. So if you want to get something to somebody, they are the distribution center because they're already there. And so I put up a map of Rwanda, which is one of the countries we're working in. And the president of Rwanda had asked us to do a healthcare project in the western part of Rwanda, which had a couple million people and very little health care. And it's a very poor regional mountainous area. And so at this conference, I put up a map of western Rwanda and I put 3 dots on it. It said, these are the three hospitals. 3 hospitals for 2 million people is not enough. But they're not the kind of hospital you think about. There was only 1 or 2 MD doctors in that province. So while they had a building, there weren't MDs. And so if you walk to the hospital, you get there, there's no guarantee you're going to get in. And if you get in, there's no guarantee you're going to get a doctor. And in every one of those hospitals, you have to bring your own food and cook it yourself. So it's not the kind of hospital you're thinking of. 3 hospitals for 2 million people is not good. I said, but, by the way, 2 of these hospitals, they're church-based. They're Christian hospitals. You wouldn't have 2 of these hospitals if it weren't for the church. So I said, now watch this. And I put up a second slide, and it had 18 dots on it. I said, here are the 18 clinics in the western province of Rwanda. Now that's better than 3 hospitals, because instead of a 2 days walk to healthcare, it's only 1 day's walk. But if you've ever been in a department or a developing country, you know that a regional or a rural clinic often means a bottle of aspirin on the shelf, and that's it. It's not like a clinic like your urgent care that's got everything and all equipment. I've been to those 18 clinics. One of them had a microscope from the 1950s and no medicine. That's the only thing in the clinic. Another one, I walked in and a woman was laying on the ground on a mat in a little small room like this, giving birth. It's basically just a roof over her head, nothing more than that. So it's not the kind of clinic you're talking about, but it's better than nothing. I said, here are the 18 clinics for 2 million people. It's only 1 day's walk. By the way, of these 18 clinics, and I'm telling this to Rupert Murdoch and the other guys, 16 of them are church-based. They're run by churches. So if you didn't have the church, you wouldn't have health care. 25% of all health care in the African continent is done by the Catholic Church. You take the Catholics out of Africa, you've just bankrupted the hospital system. But then I put up another slide number 3, and it had ... I said, here are like the 862 churches in the Western province. Now, let me ask you guys, these are not Christian people, they're just leaders. Where would you like to get your health care? 2 days walk at the hospital, 1 day's walk to the clinic, or 5 minutes away at the nearest church? Bill Gates' wife, Melinda Gates, sitting on the front row, comes up to me and says, Rick, I get it. the church could become the distribution center of health care. I said, Melinda, it has been for 2,000 years. We were doing it long before the government did. We were caring for the sick and the poor and the lame and the blind and caring for them in the hospitals that we invented. The St. Mark's and St. Mary's and St. Joseph's and on and on and on and on. So I said, I'm going to prove to you, you world leaders, I'm going to prove to you that the church can do it faster than you can, the church can do it cheaper than you can, and the church can grow it exponentially more than you can. Sending in a government or the Peace Corps, which, by the way, the Peace Plan has sent more people around the world than the Peace Corps. That's the power of church. And so I said, I'm going to prove to you that we can do it faster and cheaper and expand it faster. So I went to that province, and I talked to the pastors, and I said, you guys asked for this, because they were the ones who said, can we do health care? We didn't come up with the idea. They asked for it. They said, we don't have any clinics in our villages. And so I told them this, you guys, you're never going to have a doctor in your village, ever. I hate to tell you that, but you're never going to have a doctor in your village. There aren't enough doctors in the world to put a doctor in every village. You're never going to have a doctor. So we're going to have to train some of your people in the church to be country medical specialists. Your own members are going to have to be the healthcare doctors because you got those people. And so I said, how many of you would like to be, guinea pigs on this? We'll just try it out. We don't even know what we're doing, but we'll try it. 18 brave pastors said, Rick, amen. In the peace plan, I want my church to get the credit for caring for the health of our village. Great. So I said, each of you pick 2 leaders from your from your church. And we're going to train them how to be healthcare people in a village that is never going to have a doctor. So each of these pastors picked 2 people from their church. Interestingly enough, the Muslims came to us and they said, we hear you're doing this training. Would you mind training us too? I said, of course, we'll be happy to. I said, this is not a religious issue, this is a health issue. Now, we're not going to change what we're doing. You're going to have a Bible study every morning. We're going to sing worship songs to Jesus. We're not changing, we're not watering anything down. We are clearly doing this for the glory of Jesus Christ, but you're welcome. And they said, great. And they wept. And the 2 mosques each picked 2 people. So we had 36 Christian church members and 4 Muslims. And they're coming in their, burqas or their shababs, and they're going, we're singing songs and doing Bible studies, stuff like this. That original group of 40, we began to train them in real simple stuff like how to wash your hands for sanitation, how to do basic sanitation, how to hang the sheets out to dry in the sun so that they get sterilized. Teaching them things like how to dress a wound, how to stitch a wound, how to set a bone. They're learning so fast. And these people are not dumb. They just need education. They just need somebody to help them. And so pretty soon, we're teaching them how to administer ARVs, antiretroviral drugs, and do compliancy on that. And they're just brilliant at it. And we give every person 7 families to visit. And you're going to make house calls. You're the country doctor. And you go visit 7 different families in your church. And if they're healthy, then you're going to sit down and you're going to teach them a little lesson on preventative health and how to stay healthy. And we started with 40. And then we said, okay, you go out and you get 40 more. And we trained 80. And then 3 months later, we trained 80 more, 160. This is exponential. And 160 got 160 more, and it's 320. And then 320 became 640. Okay, and then you just see it's doubling every 3 months. A couple years ago, I went back to Kabuye for a rally in an open-air stadium-type area for about 4,000 trained healthcare workers in churches. 4,000. And they're all wearing T-shirts with different colors representing their church. Who's getting the glory? Not Saddleback. Those local churches. It's the church being the church. It's the church caring for the sick, preaching, teaching, and healing, doing all of it. We did it faster, we did it cheaper than any government could anybody do. Now, when that happened, word got out. And I started getting calls from presidents from other African countries saying, when are you going to bring the peace plan to us? This is where I need your help. And so I got a call from the president of Malawi. I got a call from the president of Sierra Leone. I got a call from the president of Liberia, from Nigeria, from DR Congo, from, I can't remember even all of them, Botswana, Burundi. And they're all calling and saying, when can you send peace teams to our community to start training our people to care for the sick? And I said, well, I can't. Saddleback Church has sent over 1,200 members just to that one country, Rwanda. 1,200 members have gone to Rwanda. I said, I can't do that to all 56 nations in Africa, but I can send the Rwandans who we've trained. And I can enlist some other churches to be partners with the churches in that country. I said, great. So the first one was Malawi. And so Tim of Central Christian in the church in Chicago area, Tim said, our church will adopt Malawi just like Saddleback adopted Rwanda. So we took him down to Malawi, introduced him to the president, who I knew and several of our staff knew, and they started there. I got a report 2 weeks ago where that church has been in Rwanda teaching what I just taught you to about 250 pastors. He taught it. You could do this. You can do this. And now they're going to train those people in PEACE. And they're going to make the churches there the heroes.